All right. Are we starting now? Okay, yeah. Great. Thank you, Dr. Carlita. So, welcome everyone. We just gave everyone a few more minutes for those who were just showing up, having a little difficulty logging in. Just want to give everyone a few extra minutes to log on. So, thank you very much for joining us today. For the community practice instructor meeting today. Today's, so you know a little bit what to expect, and we'll talk a little bit more. But this will be more of a peer learning, sharing, and continuing improving tied to program outcomes and just overall with the instructors and the Illinois Works program. So again, thank you for joining us for today. You may have received a little notice when you logged on, but just so you're aware, this session is being recorded. Just so you're aware, and this recording will be available later on the presentation. This presentation recording will be available for you to review later on as well. All right, so here's our agenda for today. So we'll do a little welcome for everyone. Then we'll talk about this community practice. Then we'll discuss high quality instruction. And last but not least, how your impact as an instructor affects the overall program. So for section one, for getting started, by the end of this section, you will get to know each other. So everyone who's in the room, you'll get to know who your colleagues are that are also part of the Illinois Works peer apprenticeship program. Review a summary of Illinois Works. Know how to use WebEx because there are a few new instructors that are joining us. So WebEx might be new to you. Review the benefits of a community practice and also determine the mandatory community meetings and the absorbed learning management system. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this session is being recorded for WebEx. We're just going to go through the features real quick, so you're aware. So there is a mute and unmute button at the bottom left. To stop and start your video, it is right next to the mute button. If you ever want to raise your hand to ask a question or unmute yourself, there's that option there. You'll see a little hand pointing up like that. There's emojis if you want to react to anything that me or one of your colleagues say. If I say something funny, feel free to add a laughing emoji or whatever you want to react to. You can do that. And there's also a chat option if you want to, if you want to ask any questions. All right, so there will be a Mentimeter questions being asked. So on the right hand of your WebEx screen, please click the continue button. once you click the continue button, the Mentimeter app will show in the multimedia viewer. So we will be using Mentimeter throughout our session today to engage with one another. So please make sure you utilize this. And if you're joining us from your mobile phone or tablet, you probably would need to use Mentimeter on a separate web browser. So there is the code and link there as well. All right. So as I mentioned, we'll be using Mentimeter. So in the Mentimeter now, please introduce yourself. Let's see who's in the room with us. Please state your name, the organization that you are with, and which courses, programs do you lead for in the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. So again, your name, your organization, and what programs or courses, what modules do you particularly lead and teach in the program? And, again, using the Mentimeter. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Dog, Hunter, and Troy Wiley from Danville Area Community College. Hello, welcome. And we do have um, Juanette Appleton from Eden Career Institute, Workforce Development Career Readiness. Um, and I do see in the chat. So Cayenne, if you're joining us through the WebEx app, there's a multimedia viewer option. Um, so you would see that, you should see that in the WebEx app. Um, and I could put the link in the chat for you. All right. So we have Daniel Crutcher from Youth Built McLean County, NCCR core trainer and instructor. Welcome. I know we have more people, so what other instructors do we have from what organization, agency are you part of? What modules? Maybe it could be that you lead the whole NCCR, that's fine. Or MC3, do we have any MC3 instructors? So we do have Janet Parales from MFS, career coach, employability skills, basic communication, diversity, inclusion. All right, thank you very much for joining us. Krista Kuhn from Lewis University, professional resume writing. That's awesome. In the chat, we do have David Lewis from Youth Built McLean County, TSC. We have also in the chat Sergio Dimas, Youth Built Lake County. He teaches at NCCR core modules. And in the chat, we do have Victoria Wright from Chicago to us up. Okay, back to the Mentimeter. We have David Lewis from Youth Built McLean County. Okay, great. So thank you very much. And then, oh, I'm sorry, we do have more in the chat. Raymond Fleming from Squared Away Construction, Mater, the Mater training for NCCR, Flagger, Forklift, NCCR, MC3. Okay, great. Thank you for joining us, Raymond Fleming. And Victoria Wright, also Master Trainer. I'm sorry, Master. And then Victoria Wright, resume writing, elevator pitch. And the Mentimeter, Cayenne Wilborn from Center Innovation, the Transition Service Coordinator. All right, good to see that you're able to log on to the Mentimeter, Cayenne. Okay, great. So thank you very much for participating and introducing yourself to everyone and your colleagues. As you can see, we do have a wide range of different instructors and other staff joining us. So you're aware who your colleagues are, and again, help with your professional networking as well. So some of you have joined a community practice if you're returning grantee to our program, but for those who are returning, have probably seen new names from new organizations. So let's just go over what the benefits of a community practice and why we do it. So the benefits of a community practice is we're learning from each other. This is a little bit more informal than our typical presentations and trainings that we do. But we do try to solve practical challenges that we are hearing throughout the year so far. Also, we try to emphasize learning best practices for instructor effectiveness, Expand your professional network. That's how we had you all introduced to one another, so you're aware who your colleagues are. Build a community, access resources, and contribute to others. So there will be opportunities for you to answer questions and talk with your colleagues. So we'll see later on how you can contribute to all this as well. So just want to go over that. Next slide, please. Oh, we do have a question. I'm sorry. In there, in the chat, which benefits interest you the most? I'm sorry about that. I missed that one. So, from all these benefits in the chat, please enter what benefit do you interest more. So, are you more interested in learning from each other, expanding your professional network? Are you looking more forward to, building your network on other instructors? Accessing resources, contributing? Are you, as an instructor, seeing trends that you want to ask other colleagues from other regions of the state? Or are you looking forward to learning best practices or solving practical issues? All right, thank you very much. So we do have some answers now. Raymond Fleming, access resources. Cayenne, solve practical challenges and learn best practices. Okay, that's great. That's great. So we will go over those as well. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, we do have one more from Janet Parales, access resources and solve practical challenges. Great. Thank you very much for you for those who participate in answering that. So for your community and as an instructor for the community of practice, you do have to attend quarterly meetings and then also engage in the absorbed learning system. This community practice is a requirement for instructors of our program. The link is being provided in the chat for this as well. And this would be for the partner guide. These are the instructors, um, the community of practice schedule. These will be posted on the partner guide on a monthly basis. So if you go on the partner guide now, you'll see that there's only communities of practice and other training that we have for June. In July, only July will show. In August, only August will show. September and so forth. So in August, you'll see when the date is and among for this community of practice for instructors and other trainings that's scheduled for August. And again, you must register for these on the partner guide. And that's where you'll see recordings for all other training that we have conducted throughout the year so far. You'll see recordings there and our PowerPoint slides. So again, you'll find future ones on a monthly basis and previous ones as well. All right, great. So I'll hand it off to my colleague, Dr. Carlita Austin now.
Well, I thank you very much for that, Edwin. I do want to mention, going back to the schedule, we will have quarterly meetings for instructors, and I'm going to come off of my video so you guys can actually see who's speaking with you today. There we go. So we will still have quarterly meetings. However, we will not post everything all at once. Our partner guide will be updated monthly, but the quarterly meetings will remain the same. And you'll get a more exact date as we get closer to those quarterly meetings. So let's now move into Module 2, talking about the communities of practice. By the end of this section, you'll be able to define high-quality instruction in Illinois Works, align instruction to curriculum and outcomes, apply engagement strategies, and then identify common challenges and best practice. So let's begin. So what is high-quality instruction? High-quality instruction includes giving clear, structured expectations. When students know what they are expected to do, they tend to perform better. It also includes balance of classroom and hands-on learning. Some students have different ways of understanding information, and having that balance, knowing when you should talk and lecture and when you should actually give them a chance to do the hands-on experience, really adds to the quality of instruction that you provide. And then also active engagement. There's nothing better than having an opportunity to get involved. And just like we do in these communities of practice, where this is a very informal setting and you have an opportunity to share your thoughts, your views, your experiences, we want you to do the same thing when you're in your classes with your students. Give them an opportunity to get engaged. And then you have real world applications. What we're planning and preparing them for is that DOL registered apprenticeship program, and that is a real environment for them. So if we can model those real world experiences with their learning, they certainly will have a better handle on doing those activities when they get into the real job. And then finally, continuous, feedback. Understanding where the misunderstandings are, where the gaps are, sharing knowledge, all of that helps to build a high quality level of instruction for those participants. So Illinois Works instructional expectations really are these things: work-based learning, tutoring, and support documentation compliance, and tutoring support and documentation compliance. So what does that mean? It means that your grantee manual is your guide to what is expected of you as an instructor, but also what is expected of them as they receive this information. So we know for a fact that there are two clear objectives here. First, we want to prepare them for being successfully enter into a Department of Labor registered apprenticeship program. And the second really objective would be to provide these students with industry recognized certifications and credentials. So once they leave our program, they really are equipped to move into the next level. And at the end of the day, there's a minimum of instructional hours that are expected of them, and that number is 183. This number has changed from previous years, so we are using the 2026 manual guide to know what the expectations are for this full year. And of course, the delivery format can be multiple formats. For example, getting a message on my screen, I apologize. For example, face-to-face, hands-on lab work, work-based learning experiences on the work site, those are determined by what you as an instructor feel is necessary to meet that need and what that certification is requiring. Also, from a logistical standpoint, when you're going to be giving this instruction. So that is a conversation that certainly is important for the program administrator of that grant organization, as well as the instructor, so that the instructor knows what those expectations are as well. Following prerequisites are important, and I won't go through all of them, but they're listed here. And then, of course, making sure that they're following the guidance of either of all of their certifications, like NCCER core curriculum, OSHA 10-hour construction, and of course, a certified first aid CPR certification. Moving on, you will also notice that there are modules that students are required to complete. They are required to complete them all. And so I won't list all of them here, but you can see on the screen it's for trades, future, MC3, NCCR, ICCB. They all have their own base curriculum that are required and mandatory for students to take, and as well as the OSHA 10-hour. And we know with OSHA 10-hour, they cannot miss any of those lessons. So they need to be able to complete all of the meetings that they have for OSHA 10-hour. And then, of course, first aid and CPR training modules. As for adult learning principles are critical to instruction, because many of the students that we have, if they're coming straight out of high school, they are entering into adulthood, but many of the students that we have are already in the workforce, maybe have had jobs in the workforce in the past, and they are actually real adults. So we have to approach learning from a different perspective than we would if they were high schoolers. So with adult learning principles, what that does is it gives us a sense of how do we guide them through this training process. And so adult learning principles should be applied during the teaching experience, right? Number one, problem orientation. Adults want to understand what is the problem that I'm dealing with? What can I solve? Where's the solution to this problem? Maybe They want to utilize their own experiences as they apply that to the principles that they're learning in your program. So they come to the table with many, many life experiences that could help them understand and translate that knowledge into what they're learning in the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. And then, of course, internally, they are internally motivated. That's a really good principle of adult learning. They are motivated to do the work. It's not like you have to pull their teeth to do it. They are there because they have a purpose, and that motivates them. Adult learners are ready to learn. They're ready to receive knowledge. And if you think about it, if you've ever taught in high school or in grammar school, that part of their learning is not necessarily what we would consider something that is useful in a program like Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship. We have to instill how to learn when they're younger, but when they are adults, they reach a point where they know that that knowledge that they're receiving is useful information, and that's why they want it, and so they're ready to receive it and learn it. And then, of course, most adults that are in these programs are self-directed. They know how to make sure that they're there on time, make sure that they prepare for those modules. So when they test, they're ready for those tests. They are self-directed in that way. So when we talk about adult learning principles, we're talking about relevance and application. We're talking about experience-based learning, problem-centered, and of course, immediate usefulness. How is this going to benefit me? And very often we find that these students have elected to be in this program because they see this as a benefit to them. Okay, now with experiential learning has its place in this program and for students on their journey. It prepares students for the real world experiences. They learn by doing, so they get their hands wet. Simulations and practice help them understand it from a visual standpoint so they could see how it's done. Job site readiness, learning what is expected on their particular job sites, because all job sites are not the same. Different trades have different things that they utilize in their job sites. So when I look at the slide that's on the screen, this is a bricklayer's trade. So their job site is going to look very different from maybe a millwright. So we have to prepare them for the type of job sites that they will be engaging in. And as instructors, that is really something you want to be mindful of. Who's in your cohort? What are the trades they're interested in so that they can get the kind of readiness, job readiness that they need in order to transition well into a Department of Labor Registered Apprenticeship program. And then, of course, there's the feedback loop, finding out what gaps there are, what we need to do to improve, and what they've learned from the experience. So having those kinds of engagements are great for our learners. But there are some common challenges that happen early on. Something like low engagement, where students are not connecting, and maybe there's a reason for that, and it's up to the instructor to kind of detect why is that student not as engaged as perhaps the first week of this cohort. Something may have happened. Maybe they have some services that they need to help them do what they need to do to get into the program, to get connected into the program. This might be an opportunity for them to get wraparound services or student support services. We don't know, but we need to find out. Mixed levels of skills, that could be a real challenge. If you have students who are really, really good in math and some students who are poor in math, you are, as an instructor, expected to kind of determine how are you going to manage that module, that class with different learning levels, and how do you keep them on track. This may mean that for those students who have lower math skills, that more attention is needed to give them so that they can get the tutoring that they need. And that may be a conversation that you have with that student. Or that student may even volunteer. Listen, I'm struggling. Can you help me? And so as an instructor, your role will be to find the solutions to that problem and help them so that they can succeed in completing that module. What are those math requirements? Because there are a lot of math requirements in the program. And then there may be some attendance issues. Those are real challenges. And like I said before, mitigating attendance issues might be a conversation around wraparound services. Do they need transportation support or whatever kind of support they may need? And so it really is important as an instructor that you're paying attention to what is the trend in your cohort? What's happening with your students? Are you noticing any drop-offs? Are you noticing any students struggling with passing those exams? And then step in to make some changes to support them. And then, of course, a lack of structure. When an instructor is providing quality structure in the program where students know what they're doing, they know when they have to get it done, and they know all of the expectations, that's structure. But if that is not happening, a lack of structure can be a challenge to their success. So we want to be mindful of that. But let's take a look at some of the things that create engagement, some of the strategies that can do that, like having a strong opening, starting out at the gate. And I just want to share a little bit about my background in terms of teaching. I come from higher ed, and I used to teach English courses at the community college. And one of the things that I noticed that if I open up the semester on a strong start, a good footing, and I allow them to see what the expectations are right out the gate and establish that class right out the gate, that strong opening sets the tone for the rest of that cohort or for the rest of that semester. So that's what you want to think about as a strategy, making sure your ducks are in place and that you communicate that to your students right at the very beginning of that cohort. And then, of course, provide interactive activities. Give them something to get engaged in throughout the process so that it won't be a boring experience for them. You want to give them something to enjoy. Again, we talked about clear expectations and then, of course, frequent check-ins. This is where you get to tap in and find out where they're having problems and understanding what you can do as the instructor to help mitigate those problems for them or with them. So right now we're going to talk a bit and have some discussion. I want to be able to give you a chance to come off your mic, open your mic and talk to me a little bit. So what has worked well in the past for you? As an instructor, tell me what has worked well in the past for you. So you can unmute yourself so that you could talk to the group. And just let us know who you are, state your name, and then tell me what has worked well in the past for you as an instructor, particularly with our program. Is there someone trying to share? I hear static, but I don't hear any communication. Okay. I'm not able to hear you. So if you want to type it in the chat, please do so. And we'll open the line for someone to be able to speak through the mic. But if you could go ahead and mute your mic, thank you very much. And include your comment in the chat. We'll read it out loud. Is there anyone else who would like to answer that question? What has worked well in the past for you? Do we have anything? I can't really see the chat area. Is there anything in the chat?
Not
All
at
right.
this time right now.
Okay, thank you. So where do you expect learners to struggle? If you haven't had this experience yet with us, if this is your first time as an instructor with the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program, tell me, where do you think you expect some of the learners to struggle? I think they're coming in. I can see something popping up on my screen. So Edwin, can you help me vet these out?
Yeah, so the first one, it might be for the first question. It says letting participants give their feedback and their background information. So I think that's for the what has worked well in the past.
Okay.
Um, Another one, I think it's tied to the first question, is setting boundaries out front and ensuring students understand the why of being in the class.
Mhm.
And I think for the second, the following answer for the second question, where do you expect learners to struggle? We have Quannette who stated transportation and childcare, and then we had Dog Hunter who said math.
Oh, okay, great. Those were great responses. Thank you all for sharing. I think we have one more. What do you anticipate to be your biggest challenge?
Yeah, so for the second question, Sergio Dimas stated mixed skill levels, giving extra time to those who need it while giving those who already get it something to do.
That is a challenge. I like the way you couched that, giving them something else to do while you're dealing with the ones who are having a little bit more of a struggle. And so, can you kind of elaborate on what that looks like for the sake of other instructors so that may be something they could use? So, if you can unmute yourself and kind of walk us through that, that would be awesome. Who was the one who made the comment about mixed levels?
That was Sergio Dimas.
Sergio, I'm
He
unable
said
to
he's
unmute.
unable to mute. The
Oh,
participants are saying they're unable to mute themselves.
Okay.
can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. So one example is just coming to mind when someone said math, which is like probably the one thing that every cohort I struggle with. There are those who come in and they are fantastic with math. They loved it in high school and they, could do it all day long. And I have others who are not great at math at all and they're coming here specifically to receive some kind of math help, tutoring, whatever that may be. So spending extra time with others who need that time, who need to be given extra exercises. I have math packets upon packets for them to practice at home. Um, and then it's just the others. What I've done is I've actually gone online to other registered apprenticeships and unions to see what kind of study guides they have and aptitude test help they have, and I've given that to them since that seems to be more challenging. And then they appreciate that too because that's actually getting them the experience and the exposure to the actual aptitude test that they'll receive.
That's awesome. That's above and beyond. What I would encourage you to do, Sergio, I am going to bring this, I'm going to put a pin in that and bring that back up later on when we talk about communities of practice. Maybe we won't have it in this conversation, but think about that when it's related to the learning management system, because those are kind of ideas that you can populate in collaborative conversations in the learning management system for instructors. And that will be such an added value for everybody else who is teaching this cohort this year, because those tools you took the initiative to go out and find them, but if you have links to them, those tools can be added to your community of practice page. So that's really awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else in the chat that we can bring out before we move on?
I just think that some of the challenges our students face, whether they are adult learners, as in the over 20-year-olds up to 35, or the just straight out of high school, one of the biggest things that I've seen in the past year, it's just getting them to understand the next steps, as opposed to you're in this program, you're going to finish this program, and they think they're going straight into um, a job. And this is a pre-apprenticeship program, so then they go into an apprenticeship. So that has to be laid out very clearly in the very beginning. A
Mhm.
lot of times I've seen students that come in and think, okay, when I'm done with this, then I'm done with classes. Not
Mhm.
necessarily. And so actually giving them the full gamut from beginning, and not to say beginning to end, but beginning to the next step.
Mhm.
That has to be talked about more throughout the program, so that they understand what the next step is.
That's awesome. I love that. And I'm grateful that that's recorded because others will be able to hear this same kind of thought process. And, you know, I think about the way you couch that. I thought about how when a person is going to become a doctor, they go to pre-med school. They do pre-med work, right? And it's no different. They're doing pre-apprenticeship work, which suggests that there's more to come. You're just getting started at the pre-level. So I think that's an awesome perspective, and we should be thinking about ways to incorporate that throughout the cohort experience. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anyone else who wanted to share?
You have cameras in like, yeah.
Hi, Doug. I can see your name, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So talking about my chat, the textbook, we teach NCCR core, so we use the Pearson text, and they have great resources for individualized learning opportunities. And what we do is I love the thing that, you know, having more experienced participants mentor, we use that technique as well. But we just start the expectations early that if you're in class, there's something for you to be doing, whether we are giving direct instruction or if we're, you know, grouped up or whatever, there should be no downtime. And we kind of make that expectation early on. And typically the students who are advanced or overachievers have no problem with digging into the book because they know those module tests are sometimes not easy. So that's kind of the carrot, you know, at the end of the stick is they have to pass the module exams.
That's wonderful. I like that. And yes, I've used Pearson's material and they have a plethora of stuff that they can use. So that's great that you have a resource to go to. All right, we're going to go on to our next slide. And this one is a little bit more personal to you as an individual instructor. One thing we want you to commit to one thing you will implement in your first or your next cohort. What would that look like? So if you can type that in the chat, one thing you will implement in your next session or your first one. I'm not sure if you've already started teaching yet. But of all that we've discussed today and the benefits of communities of practice and the strategies for engagement, the adult learning principles, what would one thing you would implement when you start your cohort? Oh, I saw something pop up. Daily math sheets. Yes. And once they get accustomed to knowing that they'll get a daily math sheet, it changes the mindset a little bit. Victoria said discussing what is expected of the participants and the next, and it faded away. So I didn't get all of that. If Edwin, can you help me out here? Because I can't see the whole thing.
Yeah. So far, those are the two that we have related to this question.
Oh, okay. Anyone else? What would you like to implement first? Okay, you're going to unmute them. Thank you, Victor. We want you to think about this because a part of having this webinar is to really encourage you, is to impart support and information that can help you improve the quality of your instruction. So we want you to commit to whatever it is that's going to help you to reach that level of quality of instruction.
So we do have a few more answers that came in, Dr. Austin, while you were giving your insight. So we do have Tyshawn who said, our cohort starts July 7th, and I already sent a full math study guide with instructions, step-by-step problem solving, and practice questions to help students prepare for class.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
And we do have another one from Krista Kuhn that states, I'm going to start implementing more partner for small group work in my class.
Mm. You said partner
Yeah, partner or small group.
or small group work. Yeah. I think there's some value in doing that because as an instructor or as a professor, sometimes students learn better with their peers than they do listening to a lecture from someone who's at the head of the class. So providing that channel for them to do that, that medium, is an excellent idea. So kudos to you on that. Anyone else before we move on?
Yeah, one more from Cayenne Wilborn. She stated, bell ringers, these are quick hits that allow students to gain points in class.
Oh, okay. So you're implementing gamification. We do it in technology, but hey, you can do it in a manual way in the classroom setting. That's awesome. That's awesome.
We have one more that stated, I agree for modules I feel the class will struggle on. I'll put our desk into pods so they can bounce ideas of each other.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wonderful. So do we have any questions about what we've talked about so far in this module, module 2? Are there any questions?
Not seeing any so far.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Edwin, for the next module, module 3.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Austin. Really great um, insights. So by the end of this section, you should be able to enhance your ability to identify appropriate data for compliance data pools, interpret the attendance policy for the Illinois Works Peer Apprenticeship Program, describe accurate data on participant certifications and cards, and identify appropriate individuals for data entry into IWRS. So we'll talk more how the impact of instructors ties all this together. So the impact of compliance. So let's talk about the monthly compliance. When it comes to instructor, and I'll time more so with the next slides as well. We're talking about the monthly compliance. We're talking about the attendance rosters. Um, and with that, you know, thank you. With the attendance forms, it's your data entry coordinator should be entering what you're recording as the instructor. So if there are things that are not being entered correctly in attendance roster, your data entry coordinator is entering based on what was entered. That has a domino effect on the monthly compliance. And I'll elaborate more on this but just wanted to touch on that. Can we go to the previous slide, Dr. Austin, please? All right, thank you. Now, the grant manager's readings, again, it's tied. So myself, I'm a programmatic grant manager. So what that means, I do the monthly compliance, and the ratings is based on that, on those flags. And by flags, it may be an instance, for example, where um, we're reviewing modules for participants in your cohort, and we see that they didn't meet that threshold of required hours for a certain module, that 80%, at least 80% of a module that they attended. So then at that point, we look at the attendance rosters, and then we look at, say, hey, they actually, let's say it was a 10-hour module, and then we see that the data entry coordinator or whoever it was entered 6 out of 10, but looking at the attendance rosters, it was only 3 out of 10. So then, that'll be a rating, and then that'll be a flag that'll go to the program administrator and give them the reports. Data entry coordinator will look at that. And then that could take some time in resolving that, because at that point, they'll touch bases with you as instructor, like, hey, what's going on with this participant, we're reporting these hours, but the attendance roster says these hours. Illinois Works they are only seeing X amount of hours. So all that to say is, the attendance rosters have a large impact on compliance and overall completion verification as well. Because again, there's certain metrics and requirements that our program does have such as at 80% and of the attendance, and at least for certain modules, there's other modules that require 100% attendance, such as first aid, CPR, OSHA 10. Participants need to be there 100% of the time, and that 70% post-assessment score. So if they don't have any of those, unfortunately, and that's for at least one module. If it's just one module, they don't have those at the end when they're completed, then unfortunately, that participant is not considered a complete participant. So we'll touch more as we're going through this presentation on how to um, how to avoid those situations, but just want to do an introduction on what we'll touch bases on. Next slide, please. All right, so as I was mentioning, the impact of attendance rosters, how important they are. But please, as a friendly reminder, use a separate roster for each training module approved to be delivered in your curriculum. They do look like that. There are some grantees um, who have special permission, who requested, their program director requested to just tweak the roster a bit. Usually these are colleges, universities who requested special permission to our office to adjust them a little bit to better reflect their system. But again, you should be using the roster that's on screen. The participant's legal name must be printed alphabetically by last name before the instruction begins. Again, you should have this roster by your program administrator or someone else in the organization ahead of time. So please have those printed legally, again, by their legal names, not their nicknames, please, their full legal names. And the reason we say that is because these are attendance rosters that are assigned by the participants. As I mentioned, use these for compliance. Sometimes we have seen rosters where there's, for example, a Jonathan, but their name is printed as, let's say it's Jonathan Sanchez, but then their name on the roster is printed and signed as J. Sanchez. Unfortunately, that's not allowed, and that'll be hard to pinpoint if that was the person who was supposed to sign it, because it could be someone else whose first name, who their nickname is also J. It could be a Jose, for example, who goes by J, or a Joseph, whose nickname is a J. And just to avoid all that, we have to use their legal names in the attendance roster. Participants are also required to sign the roster acknowledging their attendance to the module, and instructors are responsible for entering daily training hours for each participant, no later than each training day, and they are to be recorded in increments of 15 minutes and document any shortfalls in attendance per our guidance. And our attendance roster does have a notes section at the bottom, so if you need to take some notes to help you keep track. So for example, if you're in the middle of instruction and you see Jonathan J, who walks in late, you could write it down and then at the end record his or her time. A little bit more on the attendance roster. So again, as I was mentioning, their name, just so we're focusing on that. So that's where you would put, this needs to be fully filled out also. So I want to emphasize that the top section needs to be fully completed as well. When we see, as the grade managers, we see attendance rosters that aren't fully filled out. Unfortunately, that is a flag, and then we send that back to the program administrator to correct. And then again, that delays monthly compliance, and that leaves a negative score on monthly compliance. And overall, it affects the metrics of your program. So again, please make sure it's all filled out with the organization name, your instructor's name, instructor's organization. If you don't are not specifically tied to that organization, or your providing instructor, if you're, for example, an independent contractor, the module name for that particular module, the training dates. So those are really important. All of that is important, but please make sure you don't forget the training dates from when it started to when it ends, the training time from when it begins for that module to when it ends, the cohort number and what are those module dates for that cohort, the specific hours for that module and the module number as well. And then at the bottom, you'll see where you can enter in more specifics the training date. So if it's, let's say, a module that runs from June 1st to June 18th, I don't think there's a module that's that long, but just for the sake of this example, that's where you will enter that. And again, those particular dates that you meet, their signature will go there. And again, any notes that you can enter or want to enter, you have that option there as well. All right, a little bit more on the attendance rosters, again, all attendance sheets must be signed and dated by the instructor to verify data in WRS. So again, you need to ensure that you sign it and dated. In the past, we have received, the Office of Illinois Works has received attendance rosters where there is an instructor that signs it, or even a program administrator, or even the grantee organization isn't labeled out. Again, so as the instructor, please sign and date it. And then the program administrator or manager, you hand that to them to verify. The program administrator manager is supposed to be doing, double verify, ensure that it's all meeting our requirements, everything's good. And then the date of execution and when they said, okay, this instructor corrected all the data that we need to ensure it's reported correctly to the Office of Illinois Works. All right. Now we'll talk about the impact of certifications. This is something else that's really important when it comes to monthly compliance. And overall, I'll emphasize how important it is, not only for our program and compliance, but for the participant as well. So it's important that there's appropriate spelling of names, that includes using an accurate surname and using the accurate data on the completion card. So the first one, it's important the appropriate spelling of names because we tie that when we're doing our verifications that ensures it's tied to the right person. So again, if it's their names are misspelled, we will send that back, not only for the sake of, it needs to be correct for the participant, but when they're applying to a DO RAP, if they have a certification that they're trying to, they show to the DO rep, the DO rep more than likely is going to reject them for that reason. They're going to say, hey, this doesn't match your ID or driver's license or social security card. Unfortunately, we can't accept this because to us, it doesn't match. With that being said, accurate surnames are important too. So if you have a junior or a third, please ensure that you're including that as well. Because we have had instances where actually a father or son or a son, father and son have been enrolled in our program, and then the senior and junior isn't entered. So then it's okay, whose certification is whose, is this for the senior, for the junior? Did the father maybe not complete the program because he couldn't because of his work schedule or whatever case may be? So it's important that you include surnames, and if they're a junior, a third, essentially matching what it's in their driver's license, ID, and or social security card, because again, that'll have an impact on their workforce as they enter the workforce in the construction and trades. Because the DO reps, they'll look at that and say, hey, your OSHA 10 says it's for, let's use the participant example of Jonathan Sanchez. That's what your driver's license says, Jonathan Sanchez Jr., but the one you gave us doesn't have a junior. Is this yours, or is this your father's, or whose is this? So they are that strict. Some of them are that strict. So all that to say, there's a strong, please ensure that their certifications match their name correctly, and you emphasize that to the participants as well. When they receive it, to double, triple check before they leave, because we understand sometimes it's hard to getting hold of some participants after they complete the program, but before they leave, they double, triple check themselves to ensure all their name and everything is spelled correctly. Okay, I know I had gone through a lot. Are there any questions in the chat? I know we have other slides, but I just want to take a quick pause there because I talked about the attendance rosters and certifications.
There's a question in the chat, Edwin.
Okay.
Yeah, so the question is coming from Sergio. He's asking, is it fine if the instructor signed date to be different from the attendance date the participant were in session?
You know, so ideally, as an instructor, you should be signing signing that it was accurate no later than the end of that date. And the reason is because um, let's say there's a participant that shows up late, or there's multiple, and you do write it down, or it may be a case where you don't write it down. If you sign it a week later, you may forget, or whatever the case may be, or they did show up, maybe they just showed up 5 minutes late, but there was an opportunity to log that. So that's how we emphasize that it's important that instructors verify the rosters no later than the end of that instruction date, just to avoid any mistakes, or it's easier to remember and report it accurately, just to ensure that it's all reported accurately, not only for your organization, but for the participants as well, because we have had instances where participants reach out to us and say, hey, I actually did show up to class at this time and this date, but for whatever reason, the instructor didn't enter it or didn't sign off on it. The participant somehow is able to prove it, then that's when we come back. But yeah, that's why we emphasize that it's important to ensure it's signed and you verify it no later than the end of that day.
Thank you, Edwin. There are no more questions. Chat.
Okay, great. Thank you, Victor. So the impact on IWS, I was kind of alluding to all this in the beginning when I was talking about how important it is. But incomplete attendance rosters can generate red flags that do prevent grantees from receiving their reimbursement for each participant without their proper verification. Unverified data does prolong grantees from timely reimbursement, and then continued delays in verification could place programs in jeopardy in a forced action plan. And we're trying to avoid all that. So it is important that we do emphasize that as well. There is another slide, but there is something else I want to touch on. So access to IWS. So instructors, they may have access to IWS. You may not. It's not required for you to, but some organizations do provide their instructors with access. It's important that anyone entering data in IWS must have formal training on IWS, and we do have a training that we do every year in person to go in great detail how to access, how to enter things in IWS. But in case you are provided training, provided access, and you haven't viewed the training webinars are on the partner guide. And again, an instructor does not have access to IWS. You'll need to provide that accurate documentation to the data entry coordinator or assigned staff as well. So again, let's see. And with that, we're going to be using the chat for this question. Just want to see if you're aware, who is your data entry coordinator? Do you know who your data entry coordinator is for the organization you provide instruction in? Okay, we do have one, right? We do have Sergio, who's at Mr. Gary. All right, great. That was a quick one. So Sergio, you do know. Okay. All right, we do. It looks like we have more in the chat. So we do have Krista Kuhn from Louis Joe. That's right, Joe. He is your data entry coordinator. Cayenne did mention Ms. Green, Dana Stacy, Jessica, Cameron, Vicky Wilkins, Alex. Okay, so it looks like those who are participating do know who the data entry coordinator is. So before we move on, there is another example of impact. So we want to go over this scenario as a group here, and please participate in this. And let's see how you what your reaction is to this scenario. So there's an instructor who completed training and went on vacation before the data was uploaded into IWS. There was no communication with the grantee on the status of completion. As a result, the grantee was unable to upload the appropriate data into the systems before the compliance pool date. Therefore, none of the completion data was verified. Given this is a performance-based grant, what impact of not inputting the data into IWS before the instructor went on vacation have on the participants in the grantee organization? So again, for that last question, and you can put it in the chat, and given that this grant for this program is a performance-based grant, what impact of not inputting the data to IWS before the instructor went on vacation in the Bahamas or Puerto Rico, wherever the instructor went and enjoyed the nice, beautiful beach weather? What impact did they have on the participants and overall the organization? So while the instructor was in the beach getting a tan, how does this impact the participants and the organization the instructor was providing instruction to? All right, so let me go in the chat. Okay, great. We do have Tyshawn causes them not to be in compliance. That is correct. Dina Crutcher out of compliance. Okay, great. Thank you. And Janet with a more specific answer. If there is a delay in reimbursement, that is correct. Unfortunately, then they will have to wait till next month to see if they can fix that issue. But let's say the instructor took extended vacation. The instructor, he or she or they decide to be at the beach for a month, then they gotta wait, possibly could be 2 months to fix that issue. And then the organization now is delayed even more time on their reimbursement. Vicky Wilkins affects the participant's graduation status. That is correct. If there is no roster or data is incorrect and they can't get a hold of the instructor to help them out and fix the flags, those issues. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, the participants aren't considered complete participants of our program. So again, it does affect their completion status. And again, Krista Kuhn, she did answer, participants will not be complete. Yep, and the grant is out of compliance. That's correct. And Cayenne Wilborn Mid-State out of compliance. That is correct. And what I mentioned earlier that I wanted to touch on something is I know we're touching on compliance, how the instructor ties to compliance and data and overall, but you as an instructor, you have a key role that it seems like some organizations, instructors know, but you should ideally be part of the whole life cycle of our program, all the way from the beginning to the end. And I say that because you are the one who participants primarily spend most of the time with. You'll have participants who will reach out to you for any support they may need. It could be student support, wraparound service support, whatever support they may need, transition support. It's important for you to know who to refer those participants to, when they're reaching out for the support, or if you see a particular participant who is struggling, know who to refer them to in the organization, assist them out. Or if you see a participant um, who has special interest in a specific trade, you know who to when you refer them to transition service coordinator, you keep that in the back of the mind. And as you're communicating with the transition service coordinator, like, hey, this Jonathan Sanchez in class, he seems like he really has an interest in being an electrician. The transition service coordinator will have that in the back of their mind as they're providing that transition support to this participant. So all that to say is, your role, don't see your role as only going in there, providing instruction for X amount of hours and then leaving. Or if you also do tutoring, and only doing tutoring and leave, you do have a larger impact on the participants than you're aware, since you are the one who's spending most of the time with the participants in their experience in the program. So not only is your impact with data entry and compliance, but also the overall experience for our participants in the program. All right. Thank you for engaging on those exercises and listening to, how your role as instructor ties in together. Are there any other questions before we move on? You can unmute yourself, raise your hand so my colleague, Mr. Victor Castillo, can unmute you, or if there's any questions in chat, please feel free to answer them. Any questions that you have?
There are no questions in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you, Victor.
All right.
Now hand it
Thank
off
you,
to
Ed.
my colleague, Dr. Austin now.
Thank you, Edwin. Good job. Very good job. So that was a lot of information, and we want to make sure, we're meeting the needs that you have for being our instructors for the Illinois Works Peer Apprenticeship Program. And one of the ways we do that is by evaluating these sessions. And so right now we want to take some time to get you back into Mentimeter. And if you've jumped out or got disconnected, you can go ahead and scan the QR code, or you could click the continue button if your continue button is showing on your screen, or you can use the link, the web link that is being shared in the chat. So I'll give you a few seconds to get back in, and then we'll begin our questions. All right. So let's begin. The first question says, please share your views on the meeting by rating it from 1 being the lowest to 10 being the highest. All right, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. I think I don't need to ask all these questions. You guys have the handle on that. All right, give it a few seconds. There may be a few people who are trying to still get in and want to vote. All right, thank you. The next question. The meeting was relevant to what I wanted to learn about the subject matter. You are instructors for Illinois Works Peer Apprenticeship Program, and the information that was shared was relevant to you. In what way? Strongly agree, to somewhat disagree, to neither agree or disagree, to strongly disagree, whichever one you feel is most appropriate. Go ahead and place your vote. Are there any other responses? Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next question. I plan to apply what I learned. There was a lot of good information here today, a lot of strategies that were shared, a lot of insight about IWRS and the importance and the impact. So I plan to apply what I learned, from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Go ahead and place your vote. All right, thank you very much for that. I see you, Cayenne. What improvements might you recommend for the next time you get an instructional training or webinar for the community of practice? What kind of improvements would you like to see? Take a few minutes to type in your answers. And if you're having trouble typing in your answers in Mentimeter, go ahead and type it in the chat, and someone on our team will read your answer. So far, we have no, not NA. There are still more people out there, NA. The agenda or advanced guidance is helpful. Oh, you mean before the actual meeting time? You can put that in the chat. Please elaborate on that in the chat. A live demonstration, assimilation. Okay, please elaborate on what you mean by live demonstration or assimilation, in what regard. That would be very helpful. We had to disrupt class time to attend the meeting. I'm sorry about that. It was a great webinar today. Thank you for the comment and compliment. I'm open to any information that can help our program to be more successful. Good. Having the agenda for the training in advance, more interaction with participants and speakers, less lecture and reading of slides, and then none at this time. Thank you all for your feedback. Is there anyone else before we move on to the next question? All right. So what did you find effective? Something must have resonated with you. And what was that? And then if we make any changes, what do you recommend we keep? We absolutely keep. Give you a few minutes to type in your feedback. And if you don't have any feedback, just put in NA. So let me know you're out there. What did you find effective? The Pearson resource information. Good, thank you. Anything else? Suggestions from others on ideas to implement into the classroom. That was good. Sharing of best practices. Yeah. The information regarding the importance of instructors when it comes to compliance. Yeah. Attendance requirements. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And is there anything else about this course you think we should know? Is there anything else about this course you think we should know? Sergio, if you're going to be able to share that over the during this time, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and share that information. I think he mentioned something in the chat. Can someone follow up on that?
Yeah, so Sergio was asking, can we actually elaborate on how to find the Pearson resources?
Does he have that information?
I don't think he did. It was someone else.
Okay,
Another,
gotcha.
yeah,
I
another.
think the best approach would be to share it in the learning management system, and then those instructors can see it in that system. So you can post it in there as if you were posting a chat. All right, we have most instructors have day jobs in addition to the instructing for us, so they cannot attend trainings during the day. Interesting. None at this time. The course was insightful. Thank you. Would appreciate these training sessions being offered later in the day or evenings. That's really good. Normally we do offer them around the 4 o'clock hour. This one happened to be a daytime one, but normally last year they were around 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. So we do keep that in mind, but for some reason this one was scheduled for an earlier session. But thank you for that comment. We'll definitely keep that in mind for the future. I want to thank everyone for their participation today. This was a very thoughtful and meaningful session for all of us to really know the value of what we're doing for our students. And I want to say have a great weekend. If you have any comments, feedback, or questions, certainly you can ceo.illinoisworks@illinois.gov and send that on to us so we can respond. Thank you for your time today. The next session will be on engagement and retention. And I will make a note. I heard it in the message that you guys want some type of an agenda ahead of time. So I will make a note of that to let the next person who will be facilitating know that in advance. Thank you again and have a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye, everyone.